Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Back to Ashes. My name is Phoenix. To the elite members, thank you so much for your dedicated support. It means more to me than I can put into words. With that being said, it is now time to go back to ashes. For once we arise from the ashes, we are a bigger, brighter, stronger, and a happier person every day. Sit back, relax, kick back, grab a snack, or tuck in and get warm. And prepare for your dose of vocal melatonin entitled True Scary Camping and Backpacking in the Mountain Stories. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. I'll read the first story, there will be an ad. And after that, there will be no more ads within this video. I've lived most of my life on the ragged edge of the desert. California, Nevada, drifting between dust and heat, like a loose screw on the map. Places where nothing thrives easily, where the air tastes like old bones and secrets rot under the sand. That's where I belong. Give me parched earth and hollow skies over manicured lawns and strip malls any day. People never really understood it. You go out there alone? Yeah, I do, and I love it. Always have. The desert makes sense to me in a way people don't. It's honest. It shows you everything, every scar, every sin, and dares you to look away. I've spent years combing dry creek beds for fossils, memorizing the Latin names of stubborn little plants that cling to life where nothing should. Learned which roots heal, which ones burn, which ones make you dream in colors you didn't know existed. There's a rhythm out there too. You learn it if you stay long enough. The wind carries whispers through the canyons. Owls mourn in the distance. Insects hum in the dark, like a living current under your skin. And when that rhythm stops, when it goes silent, that's when you start to feel the desert's real teeth. I'd seen strange things before. Lights that flashed and then vanished when you blinked. Shadows that moved where nothing should cast one. Hikers that walked into the heat shimmer and never came back. The kind of things you chalk up to exhaustion, heat stroke, dehydration, lies you keep telling yourself so you can keep coming back. But a couple of years ago, I saw something I can't write off, something that crawled inside my head and never left. It started like any other trip. I drove my old truck past Tacopa, through the forgotten places, those half-buried homesteads where wind whistles through the ribs of dead houses. I was heading for a plateau I'd camped on before, near a dried-up old spring where a few twisted mesquite still clawed through the rocks like blackened fingers. Up there, you can see forever. Hear your own heartbeat echo against the stars. My kind of sanctuary. The first night was perfect. Cool air, fire snapping softly. The kind of stillness that feels like a warm hand over your eyes. I slept easy, dreamed of nothing. But the second night, it was different. I felt it before I even noticed it. The air seemed thicker, heavier, though the humidity was nothing. And the light, God, the light was wrong, fading too fast, like dusk had swallowed the day up. When I looked up, the sky wasn't just dark, it was hollow. A ceiling of black that seemed to lean closer, pressing down, erasing stars one by one until only a few pale flickers remained. It felt like the desert had pulled a mask over its face. And then came the silence. If you've ever spent a night in the desert, you know silence out there isn't really silence. There's always something. A brush of wind, the buzz of insects, the low, lonely cry of an owl. That night, nothing. Not even a whisper. Not even my fire seemed to crackle loud enough. It was like sound itself had been strangled. My ears rang like I was underwater. Pressure built up behind my eyes. That's when I saw the first light. It flickered low on the horizon. At first, I thought it was a satellite, maybe a distant plane, but the way it pulsed, like a heartbeat under a skin of black, made me sit up. Then another light appeared, then two more. Within minutes, there were 12, maybe more, hanging there in a loose cluster like a constellation that didn't belong. They moved wrong, not straight, not like any aircraft I'd ever seen. They drifted, bobbing slowly, as if suspended in water, their arcs too smooth, too alive. My beer went warm in my hand as I stared, every nerve in me pulled tight as wire. Curiosity killed the idiot, right? Because I grabbed my binoculars. When I focused on the nearest light, my stomach turned to ice. It wasn't a light at all. Not really. It was something alive. The glow came from inside a body, round and translucent like smoked glass, veins of pale luminescence swirling beneath its surface. From its underside hung low, writhing tendrils that pulsed with color, blue, green like veins filled with liquid lightning. The tendrils flickered and coiled in the air as if tasting it, like a jellyfish floating in the desert sky, and it was moving closer. That's when the fear hit, raw and primal, tearing up from my gut. My legs went rubbery. I killed the fire in a frenzy, kicking dirt and pouring out the last of my beer to drown the embers. I ducked into my tent, flicked off my lantern, and froze, listening to my heartbeat crash against the silence. But the nylon walls felt paper thin, like a shroud waiting to be unzipped. I made a run for the truck, dropped low, moved fast, every step screaming in my skull, slid inside, slammed the lock, and lay flat across the seat, clutching my pistol in one hand and my phone in the other. No signal, not even a bar, just a big red X, like something that blacked out the sky and everything beneath it. Through the windshield, I saw them drifting closer, the whole cluster, silent, glowing, like a school of predators circling something helpless. One broke away, spiraling down until it hovered just above me. The tendrils glowing brighter now, curling and uncurling like an obscene kind of grace. The air felt charged, every hair on my arms standing up, my teeth aching from the pressure. Then came the sound, a hum, low, throbbing, almost too deep to hear at first. It crawled into my bones, climbed to my spine, made my vision blur at the edges. Louder, higher, rising until it was a scream without breath, a sound that didn't come from the air but from inside me. And then everything shook, not like an earthquake, just one sharp jolt, as if the world had hiccuped. The truck bounced on its shocks. My ears popped, and the pressure, it vanished. I opened my eyes. They were gone. 1 second, the sky was alive. The next, empty, black as ink, stars burning like nothing had happened. I don't remember sleeping. I don't remember thinking. I remember sitting there in the dark, pistol in hand, until dawn peeled over the horizon like a wound opening. The desert looked normal again, too normal, like a stage reset after the actors slipped behind the curtain. I packed fast. No coffee, no breakfast. Just crammed everything into the truck like evidence I needed to destroy. And the whole drive back, I couldn't stop checking the mirrors. Every shimmer in the heat looked like movement. Every glint in the sky, a signal. Something in me knew. They weren't gone. They were just waiting. I didn't tell anyone. Who the hell would believe me? Hell, I barely believed me. But 5 days later, a tiny article in the paper froze my blood. Strange lights reported over Mojave. Truckers said they looked like floating sea creatures. GPS failures, static shocks, then nothing. Same night, same place. That was the confirmation I never wanted. I don't camp alone anymore. Not out there. I keep my phone charged, my fire burning bright, and my radio humming. And every now and then, when I walk the hills behind my house and the wind dies and the air feels too thick, I look up because I know what I saw, and I know they're still out there, watching and waiting. And sometimes late at night, I wonder what would happen if I flashed a light into the sky, just to see if they'd answer. Because I think they would. I think they're waiting for someone to call them back. And I think they're waiting for me. You learn a lot about people on the trail. Some talk too much, some drag their feet. Some pack like they're prepping for the apocalypse, but forget the one thing they actually need: water. Terrence wasn't any of those. He was measured, quiet, the kind of man who moved at an even pace, like he'd been walking long before I ever showed up, and would keep walking long after I was gone. What drew me to him wasn't his looks or his voice. It was his pack. He carried extra food, extra water, extra gear, the kind of weight only serious hikers bring because they expect to help someone else. That told me he was the type who planned for things to go wrong. I like that. It wasn't long before we started meeting up outside the group hikes, coffee before trailheads, swapping maps, early starts for the long drives. By the end of that year, we weren't just hiking together. We were together. Not some Instagram proposal, no fireworks. Just two people who could split weight evenly, walk in silence, and agree on when to stop. That kind of compatibility is rarer than love itself. The trip that changed everything. It wasn't supposed to be a big one, just a mid-fall loop east of Mount Washington. Chill enough to keep the bugs down, but not so deep in snow that you'd need snowshoes. We'd planned it for weeks. Two-person tent, bear bag, beans, whiskey, the works. The lot was empty when we pulled in that morning. No other cars, no voices. The kind of silence that presses into your ears until you can hear your own blood moving. We took it as a good sign. We weren't looking for company. By mile 3, the canopy swallowed most of the light and the quiet deepened. Not the good kind of quiet. The kind that makes you want to keep glancing over your shoulder for no reason. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was just the season. At 6 miles in, the sun started leaking amber through the trees. We figured we were half a mile from camp when Terrence slowed up and muttered, "Gotta take a leak." He stepped off the trail and vanished into the undergrowth. I dropped my pack, stretched my back, and listened to the forest breathe. 5 minutes passed. 10. No footsteps. No rustle. Just nothing. Then came the scream. It wasn't a startled yelp or a slip of the tongue. It was the sound a person makes when something inside them rips loose. Full-bodied. From the gut. A scream that tore through the timberland and bounced between the trees until it didn't sound human anymore. "Help me!" Terrence's voice cracked into 1,000 jagged pieces. I grabbed the packs and ran, crashing through brush and sliding through loose dirt until the trees spit me out above a narrow ravine. Terrence was down there, on his back, tangled in rock and root. His legs were bent wrong, ankle trapped between two slabs of stone, slick with moss. When I freed him, the scream he made was worse than the first. He almost passed out from the pain. By the time I hauled him out, darkness was already dripping between the trees. We weren't making camp, not the one we'd planned for. We found a flat patch just off the trail, pitched the tarp, and built a small fire. Terrence's ankle was swelling like a fist under the skin, but he could still wiggle his toes. We weren't hiking out tonight. That's when he appeared. 1 second, it was just us, the fire popping, the woods breathing around us. And the next, there was a shape standing just beyond the glow, still as the trees, watching. "Evening, folks." The voice was smooth, not friendly, just practiced, like he'd said those words before. He stepped closer, but not into the light. Tall, lean, hood pulled low over greasy hair. His boots were caked with layers of dried mud that didn't belong to this trail. "Mind if I sit a minute?" I didn't want him there. Terrence didn't either, but what were we going to do? Say no? Out here, no doesn't leave. It means make me. He crouched down across from us, eyes darting over our gear, over me, then to Terrence's swollen ankle, and then he smiled, slow, like he was tasting something. "Bad sprain," he said. "You're stuck now." The way he said it wasn't pity, it was delight. "You got a phone?" I asked, forcing my voice not to shake. He grinned wider. "No service for miles, but..." His hand dipped into his jacket. "I got a sat phone." Relief cracked through me like sunlight. Can we please use it?" "Sure," he said, and then his voice dropped flat. "All you gotta do is take your shirt off." The words hit like ice water. I laughed, a brittle, broken sound. "What?" "No joke. Take it off. Maybe more if you're feeling generous." His smile didn't reach his eyes. They were flat, black stones sunk deep into his skull. "Could save you a lot of pain." Terrence's hand closed around the knife near the tarp. His knuckles went white. "Get the fuck out of our camp," he said. The man, Kale, he called himself, stood slowly, brushed dirt off his knees like he had all the time in the world. "Suit yourself, but you're helpless out here." His voice had a curl of something I didn't want to name. "I'll come back later. Maybe you'll feel different then." And then he melted into the trees. We didn't sleep. Every crack of a twig was a gunshot in my spine. At one point, a rock rolled into camp and stopped against the fire ring. Then another. And then soft, high laughter from somewhere in the dark. When dawn finally bled through the branches, we broke camp in silence. Every sound we made, zipping the tent, clicking the pot, felt like ringing a dinner bell. Halfway out, I saw him again. He was on the ridge, backlit by the sun, perfectly still, watching us. When he saw me looking, he raised his hand in a slow wave, like we were old friends saying goodbye. Then he turned and slipped over the crest, and we never saw him again. But here's the part that still crawls under my skin when the house is quiet and the night presses in. We don't know how long he was there before he stepped into the light. How far he followed us after. If he followed us all the way back. Sometimes I wonder if he really wanted sex or if that was just the opening play. And sometimes, God help me, I wonder what would have happened if we said yes. Because the way he looked at me, it wasn't lust, it was hunger. And hunger doesn't just go away. I've hiked almost every corner of Arizona, from the dusty slot canyons outside of Tucson to the pine-lined trails of Flagstaff. I never did it for Instagram clout or some feel-good bucket list. I did it for the silence, the kind of silence that doesn't just fill your ears, but seeps into your bones and resets everything you thought you knew about the world. When you're out there long enough, alone, you realize how loud life actually is. Phones, engines, voices, they're like static. Out in the backcountry, you strip that away, and what's left is something older, something patient, something that feels like it's watching. A few years ago, during a stretch between jobs, I decided to cross something off my list: an overnight solo in the Superstitions near Flatiron. I'd hiked the area plenty of times, Siphon Draw Trail, the lower slopes, but I'd never stayed the night. And that's when the trouble always starts, isn't it? The minute you decide to cross that invisible line. People joke about the legends out there: the lost Dutchman's gold, the disappearances, the screams. Some say the mountains swallow people. Others say something inside them spits people out, hollowed and wrong. I laughed it off like everyone else. Superstitions sell postcards, right? I packed a light, tent, stove, freeze-dried meals, extra water, the usual. Hit the trail early. The parking lot was half full. Families, college kids, even an old guy with trekking poles who looked like he belonged out there more than I did. They all said the same thing when I mentioned staying overnight: be careful. Not worried, not warning, just be careful. Like they knew something they couldn't explain without sounding crazy. I pushed deeper into the canyon, veering toward the base of Flatiron. It was late afternoon when I found a decent spot tucked against a stone wall between two ledges. The kind of place that made you feel sheltered. Though, looking back, maybe that was part of the trap. As I started setting up camp, I noticed it. Not a sound, not a smell, just that prickle in the spine, like someone staring at you through glass. I froze, listening. The canyon was dead quiet. No birds, no squirrels, not even wind. Just the click of my stakes and my breathing, too loud in my own ears. Then I saw movement across the canyon, near the slope, 100 yards out, maybe more. 3 figures, maybe 4. At first, I thought they were hikers coming down a scramble route. But they weren't descending. They weren't climbing either. They were pacing, back and forth, slow. One of them raised an arm, stiff and unnatural, like a marionette tugged by the wrong strings, then dropped it and changed direction. No wave, no call, just moving, cutting shapes into the hillside I couldn't see. I stared for too long. They didn't wave. Didn't stop. Didn't even seem to notice me. Eventually, I told myself they were climbers, cooling down or doing weird drills. The desert plays tricks on your mind, but the feeling stayed. By the time I got a fire going and heated up my meal, night was already folding in. The shadows stretched long and thin, like something crawling out of the cracks. I was halfway through eating when I saw the glow. It bled through a ridge of rock to the west, white, almost bluish. At first, I thought it was the moon, but the moon that night was a sliver, barely a fingernail, low in the east. I walked a few paces out, scanning the horizon. The glow pulsed once, then it was gone. Not faded, not dimmed, gone. I told myself it was a headlamp, somebody ducking behind a boulder. But there were no sounds, no crunch of boots, no clink of gear, nothing but the rasp of my own breath in the cold air. The fire burned low. The silence grew heavier, like wet wool pressing down on everything. And then the lights came back. This time they weren't behind the ridge. They were on the slope, where I'd seen those figures. 1, 2, then more. Little bursts of bluish light, crawling higher and higher, as if tracing a path up the jagged skyline. No pattern, no rhythm, just erratic, stuttering flashes. 7 of them. I should have left then, packed up and bolted, but fear pinned you down in strange ways. I just sat there, my eyes locked on the hillside until the lights winked out. The silence afterward was worse than the light. I killed the fire, climbed into my tent, zipped it up and laid there fully dressed, knife in one hand, bear spray in the other. I told myself it was people. It had to be people. Weird, maybe dangerous, but people all the same. And then the screaming started. It came ripping through the canyon like something tearing out of its own skin. High-pitched, shattered, almost human, but twisted in a way the human throat isn't built for. Then another joined in, deeper, ragged, then a third. They rose and fell in waves, sometimes overlapping, sometimes cutting out mid-cry, like someone had closed a fist around the sound. No footsteps, no crackling brush, just voices sliding closer. The first impact hit my tent like an open palm, hard enough to bow the vinyl inward. I didn't move, couldn't. My pulse slammed in my ears as the fabric quivered and settled. Then the footsteps came, crunching gravel, circling fast. I couldn't tell if it was one thing or many. Something sniffed at the seam of the tent. Wet, sloppy, like a dog rooting through blood. Then came the whispering, right outside the nylon wall. Low, broken syllables, strung together like a language no mouth should know. I wanted to scream, wanted to unzip the tent and run until my lungs gave out. But some part of me, some deep animal part, knew if I made a sound, if I so much as twitched, that would be it. So I stayed still. Hours crawled by like things with too many legs. The screaming ebbed and flowed. The footsteps circled, then retreated, then circled again, until finally, the first smear of light bled into the sky. I moved like a corpse waking up, unzipped the tent, shoved everything into my pack without thinking. My hands shook so hard I couldn't lace my boots. Didn't care. I bolted. The canyon was empty. No footprints, no tracks. Just clean, wind-smoothed dirt, like nothing had ever been there. But I could feel it, watching from the cliffs, waiting for me to make the mistake of looking back. I didn't breathe right until the trailhead lot came into view. Rows of cars catching the early sun like mirrors. I never told anyone. Not really. What would I say? That lights crawled across the mountain and voices tore the night open like a wound? That something pressed its face against my tent and whispered in a tongue older than stone? No one wants to hear that. Not unless they want to believe. Later, I read some forum threads, buried deep like secrets nobody wants to say too loud. People hearing voices, seeing light, feeling followed. A few hinted at something worse, that the superstitions didn't want you there after dark, that it isn't superstition at all. I still hike, I still camp, but never alone, and never in the soups. Because out there, the silence isn't empty. It's listening. I started camping alone during one of the worst stretches of my life. A stretch that didn't feel like life at all, more like existing in a gray hallway with no doors. It was after the world began limping back from COVID lockdowns, when people still flinched if your cart got too close in the grocery store, when neighbors would glare if your mask slipped below your nose, when the fear hadn't yet left the air but had sunk deeper, quieter, meaner. I just lost my job, a marketing gig I'd invested years into, like it meant anything. A week later, my boyfriend of 3 years decided to reevaluate his path and dump me over Thai takeout on my own couch. So there I was, unemployed, heartbroken, and trapped inside four walls that felt like they were pressing inward, closer every day. The silence wasn't peace, it was suffocating. One night, I grabbed an old duffel bag, tossed my hiking boots into the trunk, and drove until the glow of streetlights disappeared behind me. I didn't have a plan, didn't need one. I just needed distance. The first trip was awkward, cold, clumsy, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in months. Quiet. Not the heavy kind that crushes your chest, the kind that seeps in slowly, cleaning out the noise. I kept going after that, weekend after weekend. I got good at it, good enough to start believing I belonged out there, good enough to believe the woods were safe. Boy, was I wrong. This last trip started like all the others. A state park about 3 hours out. New terrain, just enough for remoteness to feel like I'd vanished without disappearing completely. I did everything right. Checked weather, told my sister where I'd be, packed my usual gear, tent, paracord perimeter with soft chime alarms, propane grill, med kit, Kindle, and a water filter. I even felt proud of myself setting up camp, obsessive about every detail like always. The trees around me stood dark and still as centuries, watching. That first afternoon was perfect. Long hike, feet in a cold stream. A handful of wild mushrooms that I didn't eat because I'm not stupid, but I admired them like treasure. Later, back at camp, I grilled a ribeye with squash and onions, wrapped in foil. The air turned lavender and gray as the sun dropped behind the trees, and I drank cheap wine straight from the bottle because why not? By the time I finished, it was dark. The kind of dark that feels thick, where even your breath sounds heavy. I had to pee before bed, so I walked, maybe 50 yards, maybe more, toward a little ridge, thinking the view would be worth it. That was my first mistake. When I zipped up and turned around, I realized I didn't know which way camp was. Every tree looked the same. Every direction hummed with the same black hush. I didn't panic. Not then. Not until 10 minutes passed, and the ground started sloping in ways I didn't recognize. My tripwires should have chimed by now. They didn't. The trees felt closer, pressing in. The wine buzz bled out of me like someone pulling a drain. I tried backtracking. I turned off my flashlight, hoping for a glow from camp. Nothing. Just black trees and that heavy silence, the kind you feel in your teeth. When I finally admitted I was lost, something cold settled into my stomach like a stone. I found a rock overhang to curl under, pulled branches over myself like a crude blanket. I didn't sleep. Every snap in the darkness made my pulse spike. At one point, I heard a long, low cry in the distance, something feral and hollow, and I clenched my jaw to keep from whimpering. When dawn cracked the sky, it was like being given back a piece of your soul. I started walking, slowly, careful not to loop myself deeper into nowhere. Eventually, I found a narrow trail. No idea where it led, but it was better than wandering. And that's when I noticed him. He came from the trees like he'd grown there. Tall, lean, with a gray beard and a sun-bleached hat that hung low over his brow. A pack strapped tight to his back. His boots didn't crunch leaves. They didn't make a sound. I flagged him down fast, blurting out my story. Lost. Stupid mistake. Slept out all night, like some rookie. He listened, nodding, his mouth folding into what might have been a smile. Lucky it wasn't colder, he said. People freeze out here all the time. Drop where they stand. Nobody finds them till spring. I laughed. Too loud, too nervous. Yeah, no kidding. He offered to guide me. Said he knew these trails better than Staff Park. I didn't want to feel like some helpless idiot, but I also didn't want to die out there. So I agreed. At first we talked. Where we were from, gear, trails. It almost felt normal, until it didn't. Which way's your camp? He asked. Southwest, I said. Not far. You out here all by yourself? I hesitated. Yeah, but by checking every day, people know where I am. That made him laugh. A sharp sound like a branch snapping. Smart, he said. So nobody would even know you're missing it, huh? I froze mid-step. What? He grinned. Just saying. You'd be surprised what happens out here. People vanish. Old mines, caves, sinkholes. They wouldn't even find your body. Something in his voice didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a promise. I tried to laugh it off. He didn't. He kept talking, asking what kind of knife I carried, if I had a whistle, if I could scream loud enough for it to carry through the trees, if I had a gun. Then he asked, anyone waiting on you back home? Anyone who'd miss you? The way he said it made my skin crawl. I quickened my pace. He matched it. Then, without warning, he stopped. You ever heard a bobcat scream? I turned. His eyes looked hollow, emptied out, like something had crawled inside him and pulled the curtains shut. Before I could speak, he dropped his pack. It hit the dirt with a dull thud. And then he lunged. He came at me snarling, fingers curled like claws. I scrambled, ducked sideways, kicked dirt in his face, and bolted. He howled, a sound that didn't belong in a human throat. I ran. I didn't think, didn't look back. Just ran blind through the trees, heart battering my ribs, lungs ripping open. His steps crashed behind me, closing, then farther, then gone. I don't know how long I ran. When I finally collapsed behind a tangle of ferns and thorn brush, my whole body was a drum of panic. I stayed there, listening, waiting for the sound of him crashing through the undergrowth, waiting for his breath, his laugh. Nothing. Then, a sound. Water. Trickling. I staggered toward it, praying. When I saw the bend in the stream, the little rock cairn I'd built the day before, I nearly sobbed. I knew that slope. I knew those trees. And then I saw it. My tent. Still zipped. Still perfect. Like it had been waiting for me all along. I circled wide, creeping in slow. Every nerve on fire. No footprints. No sign he'd been there. My tripwires untouched. I fired up my stove with shaking hands and made coffee. Stirred powdered creamer into that tin mug like it was holy water. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just sat and waited for the world to tilt back into something I could survive. He never came. No footsteps, no sound. Just trees, black and patient, watching me pack my things and get the hell out of there. Sometimes late at night, I think about his face when he said that. So nobody would even know you're missing it, huh? And the way the woods seemed to breathe when I turned my back. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't run fast enough. Or worse, what would have happened if I had followed him just a little bit deeper? I don't know, but crazy man out there in those woods. I hope I never run into you again. There's something about the desert that always calmed me down, or at least it used to. Most people I know hate it. Too hot, too dry, too damn empty. They think the desert is lifeless, a wasteland. But that's where they're wrong. It's never empty out there. Not really. For me, the desert was therapy. Dirt therapy, I used to call it. When the world started pressing in, traffic noise, the endless buzz of work and bills, I'd grab my keys, pack a cooler, toss in my compressor and patch kit, and head east before sunrise. I've been running those trails for years. Delilah Bend, Table Mesa, Box Canyon, Bulldog Wash. But my favorite has always been the Superstition. If you've ever been out there, you can't understand. You drive an hour from Phoenix, and it feels like you've left the world behind. It's not just quiet out there, it's hollow. The air feels older, like it's been holding its breath for centuries. I used to think that was what drew me in. The emptiness. The silence that eats the noise out of your skull. I've done solo runs more times than I can count. Camped out under black skies. No headlights for miles. Nothing but the wind crawling over the rocks and coyotes singing from somewhere unseen. Never once felt nervous. Not a flicker of fear. No lights. No shadows. No boogeymen from urban legends creeping out of the ravines. Just the sun, the dirt, and me. Until that day. The day something decided to notice me. I had mapped the route the night before. I was heading from Gripper Ridge, a gnarly climb of switchbacks and rock shelves, the kind of trail that makes you earn every mile. Perfect way to blow off steam and put my Jeep to work. I hit the road before 6, cracked skies bleeding pale orange over the horizon. The weather was clear, air warm enough to promise a brutal midday, and I didn't pass a single soul on the drive out. No ATVs, no bikes, no rigs hauling toy haulers. Just me. Looking back now, I should have taken that as a sign. The climb up Gripper Ridge was smooth. Third gear most of the way. Windows down, country music low. Quiet enough that I could hear the Jeep breathe. The crunch of rock under the 37-inch tires. You learn to listen to the desert after a while. It speaks in whispers. You just have to shut up long enough to hear it. At the top, I parked near a rocky outcrop and stepped out. The view was unreal. Jagged ridges cutting the earth like bone. Dry riverbeds, spider webbing below. Walls of sun-blasted stone rising like teeth. I took a few pictures for my Sunday post, downed some water, and then I made the mistake. I decided to take a new path. I'd seen it on satellite a few weeks back, a trail that hooked down the backside of the ridge and snaked deeper southeast into terrain I'd never touched. No name, no markers, just a faint scar on the earth. It got bad, fast. The road narrowed into a jagged track, washed out in places, gravel loose as ball bearings between the boulders. Not enough to make me stop, though. I dropped into low gear and let the Jeep crawl, tires gripping like claws. When I hit the ravine floor, that's when I saw it. A thin trail of dust ahead, hanging white in the still air, curling like smoke. Somebody had just come through there, fast. I let off the gas, coasted, listening. Silence. No hum of another engine, no distant voices, nothing but the soft tick of metal cooling under the sun. I killed the ignition, and the stillness hit me like a wall. I sat there for a full minute, holding my breath, straining my ears for anything. A bird, a breeze, anything. Nothing. Even the sun felt off, cold somehow, distant. I told myself it was just the wind, a dust devil kicking up loose soil. Happened all the time. But then I saw another one, and another. Thin columns of dust swirling up from the trail, spinning in tight, deliberate coils. Not random, not the chaotic twist of wind. These moved with purpose. I shut the Jeep down again and stepped out. The heat rolled over me in a wave, the kind that makes your vision quiver. I scanned the hills, the boulder piles, the baked ravine walls, and that's when I saw it. 30 feet ahead, a dust trail forming out of nothing. No breeze, no machine, no person. Just a twisting line of powdered earth ripping up the side of a slope. Then it curved. Changed direction like it was following something. No, like it was searching. The sound came next. Not loud, not even above a whisper. A low hum, deep and vibrating, up through my boots, like the earth itself was exhaling. My legs started to shake, not from fear, not yet, but from whatever was humming underneath me. That was enough. I scrambled back into the Jeep, fired the ignition, slammed it into reverse, and tore ass back up the trail. Rocks clanged against the undercarriage. Branches clawed at the paint. I didn't care. I just needed distance. But it didn't stop. The dust kept forming, behind me, beside me, exploding from the ravine walls in bursts, like something was digging its way up from below. I risked a glance in the mirror, and my blood turned to ice. The entire mountain behind me was boiling in motion. Dust spires clawed skyward like fingers, dozens of them, twisting, coiling, bending in patterns that made no sense. Except one. They were turning toward me. I floored it, engines screaming, tires spitting rock and dirt as I tore around, switchbacks at suicidal speeds. The Jeep bucked, slammed, bottomed out hard enough to rattle my teeth. Didn't matter. I was not stopping. I didn't breathe until I hit the flats. The dust trails ended there abruptly, like something that slammed a door behind me. I rolled to a stop, hands shaking so bad I could barely work the shifter. The desert stretched out all around, endless and sunbaked, pretending nothing had happened. But I looked back. The ridgeline was a jagged black cut against the sky, and around certain peaks, the spires still danced, slow, patient, like they knew I was watching, like they knew where I lived. I never went back to Gripper Ridge, stuck to easy trails after that, surface level stuff, the kind of places where you can still see cell towers if you squint hard enough. But even now, years later, I can't shake it. Sometimes when I'm flipping through trail maps or changing out a set of tires, I think about those spires, about the way they turn toward me, and about that hum. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The desert isn't empty. It's waiting. And some places, some cracks in the world, they were never meant for us to find. I've lived in Arizona my entire life, born and raised in the sprawling oven just outside of Phoenix. But the desert was never mine. Not really. I'd spend decades looking at those jagged ridge lines through tinted car windows, convinced they were nothing but heat and misery and death disguised as scenery. People who didn't live here would never understand that. They think the desert calls you. It doesn't. It waits for you. As a kid, I wanted nothing to do with it, while other kids ran the trails in hiking boots and SPF 70. I was inside, safe beneath the hum of air conditioning, hypnotized by the blue glow of late-night TV. The desert didn't care. It never chases. It just waits, silent, patient, until something in you shifts and you wander out there willingly. That something came in my 30s. I can't say exactly why. A cocktail of aging anxiety, the kind that gnaws at the edge of your sleep, and too many videos of bronzed strangers perched on red cliffs, grinning like they knew something the rest of us didn't. I started running, lifting, burning myself into a version of me I could tolerate. Then the treadmill stopped being enough. I needed earth under me, jagged and real, something that felt like survival. I started with short loops, easy trails, nothing dramatic, always alone. I didn't know many people who wanted this kind of punishment, but I liked the solitude. Hiking alone gave me a sense of control, a feeling I could wring order out of chaos if I just planned hard enough. Water ratios, first aid kits, redundant maps, printed and downloaded. If the world fell apart, at least I'd be ready. Or so I told myself. Once confidence set in, I made a list, typed neatly in my phone. Arizona trails to conquer. At the top was the Superstition Mountains. Not because of the legends, though God knows they were there. The missing miners, the warnings carved into stones, whispered stories about people who walked in and never walked out. The mountains had teeth, and they weren't shy about using them. Maybe that's why it felt like a rite of passage. If I could walk the superstitions and make it back alive, I'd prove something. To who? I don't know. Maybe to myself. Maybe to the desert. But I wasn't stupid. Not this time. Too many headlines had begun with the same arrogance. Experienced hiker found dead. So I booked a guided tour. late spring manageable weather. A local guide named Derek Kreider, whose reviews glowed online. His ad promised something special, a secret route to Hackberry Springs, ending in a hidden canyon hardly anyone had ever seen. A place beyond maps, a sliver of earth that existed only for those brave enough to reach it. There were 12 of us, Derek included, a mixed bag of college kids, weekend warriors, and a couple obsessed with filming every breath for Instagram. We met early, loaded into two dust-caked SUVs, and drove until the asphalt ended. The sun was already burning, but not yet cruel. Derek cracked easy jokes, the kind of confidence only someone who's walked their trails 100 times can fake. I remember thinking, this guy knows these mountains better than anyone. I had no idea how wrong that would turn out to be. At first, it was everything I'd hoped for. The opening miles were tame, sand-soft trails, winding through mesquite and Palo Verde, dry creek beds crunching under our boots. Derek pointed out rusted wagon ruts, petroglyphs carved like scars in the cliff faces, and a cactus shaped like a tuning fork that the drone couple couldn't stop photographing. We laughed, breathed deep, and sweated through our shirts. The heat didn't creep. It slammed. By 10 a.m., the canyon air had gone still and sharp, bouncing sunlight off the walls until it felt like walking through the belly of an oven. I was fine. I'd planned for this. The others weren't so lucky. One guy, Mateo, started dragging behind, his skin blotched red and slick. Derek slowed, his eyes never leaving Mateo. No shame in turning back, he called. Nobody volunteered. Nobody wanted to be the one who quit, so we kept moving. By noon, the terrain had changed. Derek veered us off the official loop onto something older, something that didn't feel like a trail so much as a wound carved into the earth. The walls rose higher, hemming us in. Deadfall littered the ground like bones, branches twisted into claws. Flood debris clung high in the crooks of trees, proof of water that once raged here like a god. This wasn't dangerous, not exactly, but it felt wrong, like a place the world had forgotten or abandoned. And then we reached it, a slot canyon so narrow it seemed to breathe. Derek grinned and swept his arm out like a magician. Locals call it Dead Man's Draw, he said. Creepy, huh? Don't worry, it's just a name. Just a name. We laughed, but it was a brittle sound, because stepping into that canyon was like stepping into another world. Shade swallowed us whole, but it wasn't a relief. It was a void. The temperature dropped so suddenly it made my teeth ache. The air smelled wet, like rot. Puddles spread across the canyon floor, stagnant and slick, filmed with green decay. There were no birds, no bugs, just the sound of our boots grinding into stone and the thud of our hearts in our ears. We stopped under a rock overhang for lunch. People peeled off their packs and settled into small tense clusters. Derek muttered something about nature calling and disappeared behind a wall of stone. That was the last normal thing that happened. The scream tore through the canyon 5 minutes later. It was raw, animal, not the sound a man makes when startled. The sound a man makes when something opens inside him and drags terror out by the roots. We ran, scrambled up a rocky incline slick with moss, and there he was, Derek, on his side in the tall grass, face bleached bone white, shirt glued to his skin with sweat. He clawed at the earth, shoving himself backward from something in the rocks. And then I saw it, curled like a coil of living stone, thick as a tire and twice as long, was a rattlesnake, the biggest I'd ever seen. Its body didn't move, but the tail twitched slow, like a finger on a trigger. Its eyes, flat, depthless, never left us. Derek's leg was a horror show. 2 neat punctures burned black in the meat of his calf, the flesh already swelling, hard and shiny, like something trying to hatch from inside him. His breath sold in and out, words breaking apart. I stepped. I didn't see. God, it's burning. We dragged him back to the overhang, panic fracturing the group into pieces. Someone fumbled with his pack and pulled out a radio. Static shrieked before a voice cackled through, thin and faint. The signal barely held. A message went out. Then the battery bled dry. And that's when the light started to die. It didn't fade. It collapsed. One moment the canyon glowed gold with late sun. The next it was drowned in black. Cold slammed into us. People shivered violently, teeth chattering. Even Derek curled in on himself, whispering nonsense through blue lips. The canyon walls pressed tighter, the dark so complete it felt alive. And then we heard them. Howls, not distant, close, threading through the stone, sliding under our skin. Coyotes. A dozen at least, maybe more, voices rising and breaking like laughter. We told ourselves they wouldn't come close. But then pale eyes bloomed in the dark, hovering above ledges, winking between boulders, shapes slinking low, bodies lean and twisted, fur hanging in ragged curtains. They didn't advance, not yet. They circled, waiting, like they knew time was on their side. "We need higher ground," someone hissed. So we climbed, a boulder slick and cold as a corpse, and huddled like children, 12 bodies pressed together on that slab of stone, while the desert's hunger gathered below. Derek moaned once, long and low. When I touched his chest, it rose shallowly, then fell. The bite was turning his leg into something unhuman, black veins spiderwebbing up his thigh, the skin splitting wet in places. Hours bled together. The coyotes never left. They sat like statues, eyes glowing, jaws slack in silent grins. Once, one of them barked, a short, sharp crack that silenced everything. It sounded almost like a signal, and I swear, after that, I saw movement higher on the canyon wall. Not a coyote, not an animal at all. Too tall, too still, watching. By the time rescue lights carved the dark, my mind was already breaking. Voices shouted, flares spat fire into the void, and the coyotes slipped away soundlessly like smoke. But when the rescuers climbed to us, their faces were pale. They looked at Derek's leg, then at each other. "He's gone," one murmured, too quiet for others to hear. They strapped him to the harness anyway, out of respect, or fear. We stumbled after them, blind and numb, toward the flare-lit mouth of the draw. But I swear I felt eyes on my back the whole way. Higher than any coyote, patient, unblinking, following us to the ridge of the world. Derek didn't make it. They never said that officially, but I know. His silence told me everything before the chopper blades ever touched the sky. I still hike, sometimes, but never in the superstitions. Some places don't want you there. They never did. And when you force your way in, they let you feel it. the hunger, the cold, the things older than names. And if you ever find yourself in dead man's draw, don't look up. And that, dear listeners, brings a close to these true scary camping and backpacking in the mountain stories. I'd like to give a shout out to the rest of the members of Back to Ashes. Thank you all so much for your continuous support, as I always say. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have a voice and this channel would not exist. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you are new to the channel and you enjoy what you have heard, please leave a like and comment. If you would like to join the Back to Ashes family, please hit that subscribe button and set your notification bell to all. That way you'll be reminded of every time I upload a video. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you're awake, I hope you've enjoyed this collection. Until next time, please stay vigilant and please take care of yourselves. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourselves a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Peace, love, and light to you all.